This is our first kind of major event of the year in Europe. We have events pretty much all over the globe, but I'm delighted that we've been able to do this as our first kind of big event in Brussels, given it's the new legislative cycle, new European Parliament, new Commission. But we'll go straight to our first keynote speech, which is Ilya, who's CEO of the NEAR Foundation. He's going to talk a little bit about market developments and the interplay between blockchain and AI. AI, obviously, the buzzword all over the globe, but particularly in Brussels as well from a policy perspective. So, Ilya, thank you very much for joining us. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Well, amazing to be here. This is kind of my first present. Well, we had the blockchain conference in Brussels a few months ago, but first time presenting to the members here in Brussels. And I want to explain kind of how AI and blockchain work, but also, more importantly, why we need a little bit different way to think about AI. So maybe a little bit of background. I before actually jumping into a blockchain rabbit hole, worked on machine learning and AI for about 10 years. I was at Google Research working across effectively how we teach machines to understand natural language. And I'm a co-author on a paper that introduced technology that is T in GPT, so it's called transformers. And so we worked on it at Google, and then OpenAI effectively scaled it up and put it in ChatGPT. And now this technology powering effectively every AI system in the world, from Midjourney to like all of the GPT analogous to even credit scoring machinery that people use. Now, in 2017, after this work, I left Google and I started an AI startup. We were trying to teach machines to code, and this is something I'll expand on. But we actually, being a small startup, being a small startup, we were trying to engage a lot of people around the world as contributors. So we were trying to find a new way to effectively have collaboration. And we faced a challenge that actually it was hard to pay them, right? We had people in Eastern Europe, in China, in Southeast Asia, and sending money, especially small amounts like 15 cents here, $1 there, is actually really complicated. And that's when we kind of faced, actually blockchain sounds like an approach to solve that, except even back then, the kind of Bitcoin and Ethereum, the two main blockchains, were already too expensive, right? They're already 30 cents, $1 in fees. And being a software engineer, I'm like, well, this is a bunch of code. It should not cost this much. And so we started NEAR Protocol, which is now one of the top blockchain protocols. It has over 30 million monthly active users, about 3 million daily active users on the blockchain. It is able to scale to the demand of billion users and more, and it's kind of designed to effectively the way Google and other scalable systems designed, but in fully public way where anybody can participate, run in a node, participate in network. Now going back to AI, so my real belief is that AI will be effectively the last technological platform, right? We had a lot of kind of innovation over past 40, 50 years with new platforms coming out, everything from like spreadsheets to mobile to cloud, like all of them kind of created new way of engaging with technology, but they all were effectively just a stepping stone. The AI itself is going to be the platform that now you can use to build everything else, right? You already saw that Nobel Prize are given to people who are actually doing AI for other research topics, right? With chemistry, because it's effectively a platform for solving other problems. And so the kind of from a technology perspective, AI itself will be used to continue refining itself instead of needing a new platform. So to give you an example, you can effectively already use like AI inside AI system to build something that will use AI, right? So it's a very self-referential system and kind of continues evolving where you don't need to be a developer anymore to actually program it and tell it and add new capabilities and functionality to it. And so that's why there's going to be effectively last technological platform that then everything else that not going to be like that's applying this technology to different places will be built. And so to give you like a very specific example, right, of what we want to enable. So I'm originally from Ukraine. When the war started, we didn't know if the banks will even exist next day. And so we started a crypto, effectively coalition that would fundraise money and deploy it to help people in Ukraine. And so we used blockchain for that. We had actually over 100 volunteers who would manually process requests. We effectively built like a nonprofit out of like blockchain and a bunch of telegrams in a day. But you can imagine, and this is not very far from where you can just tell it to your AI assistant to start such a Ukraine relief system, and it will start a services that will be effectively doing all of those jobs that we had volunteers do, including procuring things in Poland and Germany and figuring out how to ship them to the Ukrainian border and have some volunteer pick it up from the border and drive it to the places. Like all of that will be coordinated and done directly by a platform. Now, those things, we call them agents, will be running on the background effectively as part of this project, and enabling kind of this new functionality is as easy as just explaining what you want, right? And maybe it asks you some questions, it refines how it should work, but it's effectively kind of moving away from building out manually processes with people and with like patching together spreadsheets and CRM systems, etc., to just having kind of effectively a conversation, and all of the software parts and bits are being built on the back end by the AI system itself. Now, kind of, this is exciting future. The problem is the way the incentives are set up right now is that we have effectively for-profit companies. And as a for-profit company, you need to continuously show increase in revenue. Like that is literally you either growing or you're dying. Like there's no kind of place in between. And what this means is that these big tech companies, in pursuit of this profit, are now starting to break effectively how internet works, right? So websites like Reddit, which before were platforms themselves, are just becoming a data platform that sells this data to big companies, right? The effectively ownership of your information, of data now, you don't own it, right? These platforms are owning it. And obviously we all see misinformation and kind of them trying to battle what is misinformation. And in turn, we mistrust more and more what's happening on the internet. And to give you a very specific example, when you are on TikTok or Instagram, the algorithm behind is designed to make money for the company, right? It's not about to inform you. It's not about to have what is the best information in the world or finding truths. It's literally how to make money. And again, this is not because these companies are evil, in no way. It's literally just the incentive system of for-profit company, and especially when you already achieved the target audience of the world, right? Like if you already have, a billion users, you cannot, you will not be able to grow that much your audience. You need to actually generate more revenue per user. That's why Google has more ads now than was ever before, because they actually cannot grow anymore their target audience. They need to effectively sell more stuff in the existing searches. And so in turn, because that generates more revenue, they can invest it in R&D, and AI development is very expensive. These companies are effectively controlling how AI research is happening, right? There's only effectively like 3-4 labs that are able to do that. And as I said, this is a last tech platform. It's effectively control will be important on how we as humanity are going to be interacting with computing and with each other going forward. And so kind of it's becoming not just for profit, but it will become for control, right? The fact that OpenAI can just turn off, access to a country to AI tools, or Facebook can block the EU, is very unfortunate situation, because that means if this is the major economic kind of engine for the future, and you kind of just like literally lost access to it, it effectively becomes a control tool. Now, I will be very clear that the AI regulations as they are right now, especially some of them from US, they don't really regulate the kind of the core issues. They usually actually threaten open source and kind of startups because they're not able to maintain the level of kind of reporting and that's required. And then in turn, they don't actually address any of the risks and especially safety in the industry. So that's why we need a different approach. The approach that is actually more about how do we use the tools we have now, and blockchain being one of the kind of really powerful tools, to enable and truly open AI. And so the idea that the computing and this kind of intelligence tooling is a public good, right? It should be available, people should be able to use it, and we should have kind of minimum like limitations on how we use it, and it should be like the regulations, same with everything else, are not on what you think, but on what you do. And so to like switch away from this like super powerful for-profit AI companies that are just continue kind of in a flywheel, enhance their own capabilities, make more money, enhance their capabilities, we need a kind of way to move this into open development, right? Where we can proactively actually have products that are developed for privacy, and the compliance is kind of, again, enforced in the product, not in the kind of additional paperwork that is set up over it. So we kind of introduced this concept of user-owned AI. So again, compare this not to closed source, but actually to a for-profit, right? The current AI systems are for-profit of these companies, and this is AI that is optimized for well-being of the user that's using them, right? So individually is like model trying to optimize for economic well-being, for kind of mental well-being, and other kind of aspects of well-being of the users. You have full ownership of your data and your assets. You are able to effectively integrate into whatever the life and kind of data you have, because the other thing is, like, I also don't want to trust all my data into any of these companies. But if this AI actually on my side, I'm willing to give it a lot more information about myself, which means it will be able to do more things for me. And it's importantly, the AI will actually unlock participation of individual on the global market. So to give you an idea, right now when we go to Google, we look, as people, we cannot analyze 10,000 web pages. We cannot go, and so we're relying on Google to effectively give us the top results. And first 3 links are actually ads now. But instead, your AI that is on your side can go and look at all 10,000 pages and pick what is the best for you. So again, it's changing from Google giving you results based on what makes them money to your AI finding results for you. And so kind of what we trying with this model is to shift away from effectively every interaction on the internet is somebody else is trying to make money on you, right? Every single click effectively you do, somebody's trying to make money. Instead, your AI is trying to, find the best options, execute, find the best services, find the best goods for you, and you have kind of system that benefits everyone in this interaction. So how do we do this? Well, blockchain is fundamental part to actually make this happen. The problem is right now, if I'm, there's Mistral, French company, they trained the model, they open sourced it, everybody took it, used it, they did not get any money, right? They literally have a business model to take money to reinvest into building next generation model. And so there's a fundamental problem that whoever is doing pure open source is effectively at disadvantage with any other closed source company who can take everything they've done and use it and benefit from it and reinvest, and that the group that put it together does not. So we need a new model that is actually able to monetize open source and is able to effectively create the flywheel that is missing. And so that's where blockchain comes in. We're actually able to effectively have open model open kind of source of what data it was trained on, open source code it was trained on. All the research is done by kind of open source researchers, but the resulting model itself is not going to be kind of seen in clear text. Instead, it's encrypted, and only if you pay, you can actually use it. And so this innovation allows effectively to monetize open source and have a way to reinvest back into next model, into next into next research. Now, on top of this, you can have a set of guarantees, right? Now you have effectively some code running around the model. You have some restrictions that you want to apply now running with it. And so you can have a framework around reputation. You can have any kind of safety guarantees that you want attached to that model as well. And so again, blockchain here serves effectively as identity layer, as payment layer, and as a coordination layer that allow to have all of these things happening kind of in a distributed network, but following the rules that are prescribed by creators of this network. Importantly, you can also have a way when we're doing commerce, right? When we have, like I'm as a user want to buy, a bicycle, the other counterparty can request that I need to pass, KYC, that I'm not from excluded countries, that I need to sign terms of service. If I'm buying a flight ticket, there can be dispute resolution around how this transaction is settled. It's set in escrow for next 7 days until the bike arrives. So you can have all of these frameworks effectively implemented in code and kind of codified how you want to do commerce at kind of global level. With any counterparty effectively requiring whatever they need from their local regulation when they actually entering into this commitment. And again, this removes any kind of middlemen like payment processors, banks, and so this is directly kind of peer-to-peer interaction that's enforced by blockchain. So all of the kind of rules that right now are enforced by like 20 different parties usually are now moving down to the blockchain and enforcing it both from AI side and from kind of commerce side directly in that interaction when it's happening. So just to mention kind of what has happened specifically happened this year is that both kind of Intel and NVIDIA have introduced new hardware that supports so-called secure enclaves or trusted execution environment. And so this is actually what allows to have a fully private training and inference in such a way that even if I'm running on somebody else's machine, the AI inference, they're not able to see what data went in and out. They don't even able to see the weights of the model that they run. And this enables both monetization, but also this end-to-end privacy, something that I think is very important for everyone. But right now, it's actually like all of the data is being sent around and effectively stays in logs and stays in databases. Now, blockchain, again, is this system that allows for micropayments, for coordination, for monetization of the systems. It allows to fundraise for training a model. For example, kind of last generation models cost over $100 million to train, and you can actually fundraise for this, train a model, and then monetize that model and repay back the investors who put money into it. You can also have all of the kind of dispute systems and ability to, for example, authenticate if this is original content or it's been modified, if it's a kind of generated content, if it is a conversation that was between different AI agents. All of this can be effectively encrypted and stored, and later, if there is some dispute, if there is some questions, you can provide a proof that this is coming from an AI because you have this kind of verifiability authentication coming from the secure enclave. There's also, like on the other side, if you want to effectively prevent deepfakes, you can have this secure enclave. This is already happening on some of the cameras. They actually sign the original content. So when you take a picture on a camera or on the phone, there's a signature attached to it that comes from the hardware itself. And the problem is nobody actually publishes original photos. There's always some processing happening in between. And so this processing done inside Secure Enclave can also be signed and verified that you did not use an AI model to completely modify the image, but it was a set of specific filtering functions, right? Like changing light, brightness, etc., that were applied. So you can have kind of a provenance of data from the original source where it was created with signatures of the device and who owns this device, to how it was modified and changed, to when it's published, for example, in the journal. Ideally, you should be able to hover that image and see that provenance effectively, or some set of information coming with this. So again, we're using cryptographic instruments, right? Not everything needs to go to public blockchain. Some of this will be on private blockchain. Some of this can be maintained in decentralized storage. But it's effectively using these methods that we've developed now to provide kind of authentication log and have a way to dispute if there's any questions around that. Now, one more thing is a lot of the kind of current rules are very kind of hard to enforce because they are written in natural, like in English. And the problem is it can be interpreted in many different ways. There is something we're working on is effectively a mathematical constraints that we apply to not, again, how model thinks, right? Again, trying to enforce that some neurons don't fire is it's the same as trying to force people to not think about something, right? It's really hard. We don't apply rules to thinking, we apply rules to doing. And so the same idea here, instead of trying to enforce models to not think about something, we can enforce how they do things. Again, because we're running them inside these containers, we can actually apply the restrictions on the container itself in such a way that they cannot, for example, lose somebody's money or leak some specific information. And so in a way, the requirements here now become mathematical conditions that even you as a user can actually apply when you're calling something. You can say, hey, I'm going to call you, and you can only do this set of actions on my behalf, and whoever you call yourself need to also prove that they're not going to lose my money or they're not going to leak my information. So you have a chaining effect with mathematical proofs that something will not happen or something will happen in the way you want. And so it will be important, and we're working on methods to actually simplify writing these proofs and conditions in natural language, because obviously it's complicated and very tedious to do manually. So I want to kind of leave with this idea that we have the technology to effectively implement any type of rules and restrictions that are needed to protect users, to protect consumers, to protect investors. And now, instead of trying to define them in effectively a parallel universe of paperwork, right? And just to give you an example, when we were launching the blockchain, in parallel, we were filing a lot of paperwork, right? Even though the blockchain itself was running, if something was, if there was a dispute around the paperwork, we could not change the blockchain, right? Right now, it's just two parallel universes. Instead, let's actually apply these rules directly in the products and create products that protect users and, be the kind of on behalf of the user, kind of in this user-owned mentality. And also, address all of the challenges that kind of centralized companies have by effectively not needing to think about this. Thank you.